Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. I'm your host, Nick. Today, you're listening to episode 80 of Talking Blue. I have not talked to you guys in a long time, but today we are going to talk about some spring training topics, things to look forward to this spring. Okay, so it is an exciting podcast. We're here in February. Like I said, I haven't talked to you guys for a while. Hasn't been a lot of things to talk about, but here we are. It's spring training. Baseball is getting ramped up. Baseball season is starting. Before you know it, later on this week, there'll be some games going on, and then we'll be full-blown spring training, looking ahead to opening day and all that stuff. You can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod, on TikTok, on X, Instagram as well. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube so you don't miss any of the videos dropping. A lot of YouTube shorts if you're into that kind of stuff. If you're into those just little cool videos, I have some cool YouTube shorts that came out recently that did really well, so thank you to everyone. And if you're new to the video, because I did get some new subscribers, I am Nick, that is my name, and this is Talking Blue, and we talk about the Dodgers. And we're getting ready for Season 2, because Season 1, 2025, that was our first season on this podcast. You can also follow myself at Talking Blue Nick on X. I tweet about the Dodgers, I talk about the Dodgers, all that kind of stuff. I'm one of the best people to follow about the Dodgers because they're all I watch, and I'm a big fan of them and all that kind of stuff. You can also follow us on Reddit as well at competitive-week8715. I know it's a weird name, but I can't change the username, so that is what it is. But there's Talking Blue stuff all over the place, so you can't miss it. So, today, like I said, things to look forward to this spring, kind of just some of the talking points and some of the things that have come out early on in this spring. For those of you that are on YouTube, you might be able to see I'm actually wearing a Japan WBC jersey. Yes, and it is a Yoshinobu Yamamoto jersey. I'll try to do a quick spin for those of you on YouTube who would appreciate this. A little bit difficult to get it in the shot there, but this is a WBC Japan jersey. Yes, shout out to MLB.com. I ordered that jersey not even a week ago, and it came. It actually came a couple days ago at the time of this recording, February 16th, Monday. So yeah, I ordered this jersey. Obviously, you guys know, if you follow this channel, I'm a big Yamamoto fan. I saw that there were some jerseys out there, Ohtani, Will Smith, Yamamoto. I think those are the only two Dodgers actually representing their countries, 3 Dodgers. And I went with the Yamamoto jersey, and I'm repping that today because I just got the jersey, and I'm pretty excited about it. So another thing to look forward to as spring training starts in the next couple of weeks. We'll be watching really cool stuff. We'll be seeing the WBC, which is obviously really fun. Players get to represent their country, and it's actually become a really big deal the last probably 10 years, but every year it just gets even bigger and bigger. So that's pretty cool. So again, what we're here to talk about today is things to look forward to in spring training. So basically, I'm just going to go over, I came up with some things that are interesting to me to talk about, and then we'll kind of branch off those topics with some other things that kind of tie in with some comments by Dave Roberts. Just some of those few things that have come out early on this spring as we get ready for 2026. So these aren't any kind of rankings or in any particular order. These are just things that I think are interesting to look forward to in spring training. So, if you're a baseball fan, and maybe you're new to baseball or maybe you're not, obviously spring training is an exciting time because we just wrapped up an off season, and the off seasons are always long, and we miss baseball. We haven't seen any baseball since November. For some of those that aren't fans of teams that played in the postseason, you haven't seen baseball since September. So spring training is always exciting when you get to see the players in their spring training facilities. You get to see those cool videos that come out guys throwing bullpens, guys taking live at-bats, batting practice, taking ground balls, all that kind of stuff. So it's an exciting time. But if you've been through this a lot like myself and you've seen a bunch of seasons, you also know that spring training is long and it kind of gets boring quick. So my advice to those of you who watch spring training and are fans of the Dodgers are these things that I'm going to show you and talk about are little things to get excited about and to pay attention to, because obviously when you're watching spring training, you want to see the stars play and all that's exciting, but you're not really going to see Shohei Ohtani play a bunch of full games, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. There's not really like a bunch of things to look forward to. Obviously the spring training are games that don't even count. It's really about getting guys reps, getting guys prepared for the season, pitchers getting built up to throw innings, hitters getting their timing down, and just being, getting ready to play a full 9 innings. So the numbers in spring training don't really mean anything. Shohei Ohtani could hit under 100 in this spring and it wouldn't matter. And someone could be hitting over 500 and it also doesn't mean anything. Like spring training is really just about getting ready for the season. That is literally all it is. So it can get a little boring, especially after the first 2-3 weeks go by and a lot of that excitement kind of wore off. So, but these things that I'm going to show you are ways to keep you interested, ways, to not have that long, boring times that are going to come eventually, come mid-March and all that stuff. Again, it's still like mid-February, so we still got some time. We still got about a month to go before things even get exciting. But still, there are things to look forward to, so we're going to go through that. So first, where we will start is the new guys. All right, this will be pretty quick and pretty simple, but the new guys, the 2 stars that the Dodgers brought in, Kyle Tucker, the outfielder, from obviously former Astro, former Cub, brought him in, the biggest free agent on the market, and then Edwin Diaz, actually the biggest closer in baseball, the best closer pretty much, one of the best closers, and definitely the best closer that was available in free agency. They bring him in. That is exciting to look forward to. Anytime you have guys that come into spring training that are big, good players, whether it was via trade or free agency, it's always exciting to see those guys first times, whether it's on the mound or their first at-bats. I remember 2 years ago when Ohtani and Yamamoto both came over, those were the must-see things in spring. What does Ohtani's at-bats look like, and what does Yamamoto look like on the mound? So you best believe when Kyle Tucker, when it's announced the first game that he's going to be in there in the lineup, I'm going to be tuning in to see his first at-bats and see how he plays. And Edwin Diaz, same thing when it's reported, when he'll pitch, whether it's, usually relievers will pitch random times throughout spring training games. Like Edwin Diaz is not going to come into the 9th inning to close a game. He's probably going to pitch like the 4th inning of a random spring training game. But whenever he is announced that he's going to be, coming into a game and he's going to pitch that day, I'll be tuning in to see that. So those are 2 things to look forward to. Obviously, just seeing those guys in Dodger blue and seeing those guys, Tucker get his first ABs, where he'll hit in the lineup, and then obviously Edwin Diaz, how he looks. We've already seen some stuff with them in the few little things that we've had so far this spring. I've seen some bullpens from Edwin Diaz, and then just seen a few videos of Kyle Tucker. Obviously, the way spring training works, pitchers and catchers report first. That was about a week and a half ago, I believe, maybe just even a week ago. And then I do believe today was the first day of position players reporting. Today was the first time I saw any video of Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and all that stuff. Obviously, some guys show up early. Usually young guys show up early if they know that they have a chance to battle out for to win a spot on a roster and all that kind of stuff. So, so that's what I have first. The new guys, Kyle Tucker, Edwin Diaz. Those are the two things that you should look forward to, and just seeing those guys in Dodger blue and see how their spring is. So then after that, we'll talk about some other things. I just wanted to go over 2 quick things that did happen. Max Muncy was extended through the 2027 season, so he was given a contract extension. He was set to be a free agent after this year, but he does sign a 1-year extension through 2027 with a club option for 2028. So that's pretty cool. So Max Muncy, we know, will be here 2026 and 2027. And then obviously Kike Hernandez signed the 1-year deal. He's back, as he always will be, and as we all expected, with the way that the free agency plays out, it just kind of makes sense to wait until basically spring training, and it's time to report, and for Kike to sign that 1-year deal, with where both of those guys are in their career now, early 30s going into their mid 30s, really, both of those guys who are still really good players, but aren't necessarily like the superstars of the team like the other guys. It's nice to see those guys get those deals done, and obviously, Kike's a valuable guy because he can play a lot of positions. We kind of know that in the regular season, he's probably not going to do too much. We also know that he's actually going to be injured to start the year. That's another piece of info and, kind of news, is that he probably will miss the first 2 months of the season. Probably won't see Kike until like late May, early June. And then there are a couple other guys who have injuries as well. So just a couple other like news and things that have come out so far this spring. Like I said, we already talked about Diaz and Tucker and those things to look forward to. So I just talked about Muncy and Kike. Other little things. Tommy Edman, he will not be ready for for opening day. He had off-season ankle surgery. This was pretty much expected, but it was a little bit up in the air. It does look like he is still like going to be ready to play in April. Obviously, it always depends, like, how does it materialize? If by the end of spring training, if he's feeling good and feels pretty good, then obviously there's a chance that, like, 2 weeks into the season, he could be activated. If it takes a little bit longer, it might be towards the end of the month. So that's just something we'll have to see. But it is official that Tommy Edman will not be on the opening day roster, which does lead to one of my other topics, the second base job, but we'll get to that. The other really only kind of news is that Blake Snell has not really began ramping up, and his status for opening day remains in question. If I were to make a prediction based off of those news, he probably won't be ready for opening day. But it doesn't mean that he won't be for sure. But if at this point he's not really ramping up and they're just taking it slowly, he probably won't be ready for opening day. I don't think it's a injury thing. I think it's just because last year he had a big started the year hurt and went on the IL for so long. I think they're just trying to be cautious with him, and maybe there are still a little bit of things with his shoulder that he dealt with. But I don't believe that it's like an injury kind of thing. Spring training is just always a weird time because it's like pitchers and catchers report and spring training starts, and then you get like all this news that like players are injured, and it's always like, what the heck, man? Like, why is it like now you're getting surgery or now you're going on the IL? It's always just an interesting time. Guys come into the camp knowing that they have something bothering them, or some guys just literally get injured as soon as they start to ramp things up. So far the Dodgers have been kind of fortunate early on that we haven't got anything crazy, but we're still a long ways to go. It's not unheard of to see guys get hurt in spring. Obviously, Gavin Lux was one of the more recent guys that happened in 2023. There was a year where Justin Turner broke his hand in spring, and I don't think we saw him until May. So you never know what could happen. But so far, the injuries are most of the things that were expected. It was pretty much expected Tommy Edman wasn't going to be ready for opening day. Like I said, it was just now confirmed. So that is what will lead me into another thing to look forward to, and just like an interesting thing to talk about going into spring and keep your eye on is the second base job. Because we know with the Dodgers bringing in Kyle Tucker, we know what the outfield situation is going to be. We know, obviously, Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy. We know where those guys will play. Mookie Betts, although throughout his career, and especially the last few years, he's been all over the place. He is going to be the Dodgers shortstop. We know that. So it really just leaves, Tommy Edman would be playing second base if he was ready to go. And I do think ultimately throughout the season, he's going to get most of his playing time at second base, unless something happens with in the outfield, Andy Pages struggles or, something like that. Maybe Edman would have to go out there. But I think when you combine, the outfield situation and then the fact that Tommy Edman's going to be coming off another surgery and who knows if he'll even be ready to play the outfield, it would make no sense that he will be the second baseman. But like I said, he's not going to be ready for opening day. So that does leave options for who will be playing second base. Obviously, you have the World Series hero, Miguel Rojas, and it is pretty much believed, I don't know if he's officially announced this, but it is pretty much believed that this will be his last season in the big leagues. Miguel Rojas, that is. So, of course, he is an option. You have Hae-Sung Kim, who is, I do believe is in the second year Obviously, he's in his second year, but I do think he's in the last year of the contract he signed when he came over to the Dodgers from the KBO. I do think he signed a 2-year deal. So, hey, Kim could be a free agent after this year. And then other second base options are Alex Freeland. We got to see him last year in the second half of the season. He did some interesting things, showed some really good defense. He can play second, third, and short. And he's obviously a natural shortstop, and a lot of people like him. And he was a legitimate top prospect for the Dodgers. Not necessarily a top 100 prospect, I believe, but he was a legit prospect, someone to get excited about for sure. So those will be all the guys kind of battling out for second base. I would imagine that right now they would, Miguel Rojas is kind of the guy, obviously because, he's Miguel Rojas and he's a team leader and he's, going into his likely last season. Now, it does kind of play out perfectly for a platoon situation. Miguel Rojas obviously hits right-handed, and he's actually is still a very good hitter against left-handed pitching. And if you go back and look at his numbers over the last couple of years, Miguel Rojas has actually been a league average bat, and I do believe he's actually been a little bit better than league average. So he's actually been a very good, I wouldn't say very good, but a solid offensive player, and he's always been a very good defender. And even at his older age at this point in his late 30s, I still am confident that he's going to play really good defense. Last year, he was actually, in his limited time, was one of the better defensive second basemen in the game, even at his older age. So maybe there'd be a little bit of drop-off because he obviously is another year older, but I do believe that at the very least he would be an average to slightly above average defensive second baseman, and I would expect that he would be, even better than that. But obviously, you got Kim and you got Freeland, who are both guys who hit left-handed, and would be an option to be in there against right-handed pitching. A lot of people, I would imagine, their mind goes to Hae-Sung Kim being the guy to get the starts, but this is where the Dodgers are going to have a little bit of a rare competition in spring. Now, it did say that Dave Roberts did say that Kim and Freeland are essentially competing for the same role on the 26-man roster, which if you can kind of read through the words there of what he's saying, that could kind of mean that Rojas is the second baseman and those guys are kind of battling it out for a bench spot. Not necessarily all of them are battling it out for a second base spot, but obviously it's all up in the air. Again, I think Miguel Rojas doesn't really have anything to prove to get at bats at second base against left-handed pitching, but I do believe that Kim and Freeland are going to be battling it out to get at-bats against right-handed pitching, which obviously more pitchers are right-handed than left-handed, so that means that they should and could possibly get more ABs against just overall as the second baseman. So it's kind of interesting to see how that will play out, and that is why it is one of my things to look forward to. They're both actually somewhat similar players in that they kind of had a lot of swing and miss last year, Kim and Freeland. But Freeland has a lot of exciting things to look forward to. I actually think if you asked a lot of people, Hae-Sung Kim is kind of like a fan favorite. You really see him. He seems like a really just nice, lovable guy, and he has a lot of attributes to him that are exciting. He's supposed to be a really good defender, and he's really fast, really good base runner. Just seems like a nice guy. He's in great shape. He's young, likable guy. A lot of people, I think, would expect Kim to be the second baseman. But if you actually asked, I wouldn't be shocked if you asked people in the Dodgers organization to give their true opinion. They might actually say that Alex Freeland is the better option, even though he's younger than Kim. Freeland is someone that could play shortstop right now at the big league level defensively, and he would be solid as well at second and third base, and he has shown the ability to hit. He's hit at the minor league level. He did not hit very well last year at the big league level, but he did have his moments. I remember his first big league homer in August against the Padres, but he did show some things. Again, another guy that has good speed as well. So I do believe that they are in a real competition to where if Kim, shows that he can, hit big league pitching, the job is his, I think. But Freeland, if Freeland kind of balls out this spring and shows a lot of things, especially, if Kim kind of struggles, Kim might be, optioned back down to the minor leagues, and then it might be Freeland's job, going into the year to play second base against right-handed pitching. Freeland's also a switch hitter. I'm pretty sure. I'm forgetting that, but I know obviously he hits left-handed for sure. Now, Kim is an interesting player because he is very athletic. He has been, they have kind of made him into a versatile player where he's a natural second baseman that has played shortstop. And I do believe he's played third base at the professional level in the KBO. Obviously, last year he got his time he got his time in center field as well. So he's now a player that when you evaluate Kim, you can look at him as a guy who's like kind of a true utility guy. But he was pretty valuable on the base pass last year in terms of just stealing bases, and he's very aggressive. And I think that Kim has parts in his game that can translate to being a good big league hitter. But he did really struggle last year. I mean, he had really, really bad like chase rates and whiff rates, and he just didn't walk at all. Didn't hit the ball hard at all. There wasn't really many things he did. But again, it's interesting because Kim, for a long time last year, Kim did show that he could play, and he did have decent numbers. If you actually go and look at his numbers, first half to second half, Kim did not start the year on the big league roster I believe he got called up at the very beginning of May. And he didn't play right away, but when a couple of things, a couple injuries and stuff like that, he did start to get into the lineup a little bit more, playing some second base, playing some outfield. If you go look at his first half, second half splits in 2025, now in the first half he only played 43 games, and then in the second half he played 22 games. So it's not a big sample size, obviously. But if you go and look at his numbers, in the first half of 2025, he did have an OPS of 842. Now, again, that is a high number because he didn't have a bunch of at-bats to bring that number down, but he did play very well. I can remember, well into July, when Kim would come up to bat and they would show his numbers on the board, I can remember thinking to myself, wow, Kim actually, we're almost through the first 3-4 months of the year, and Kim has actually put up really good numbers still, and kind of proving that he can play at the big league level. But then in the second half, he had an OPS of 364. I do believe in Kim, but he really had two drastic, first half, second half numbers, and he definitely really struggled in the second half. And I do believe that Dodgers have some fears with Kim because if you watched the last postseason, he was on the roster most of the postseason. He did not get any at bats, So I do believe that they've I don't know how much they believe in him, but they're definitely going to give him a chance because again, he's a very good athlete. He's shown that he can hit at professional levels, over in the KBO. He's still very young. Again, he didn't get a ton of playing time last year, and he was only in the minor leagues for about a month, so he didn't get a ton of at bats. So they're going to give him a lot of run this spring to see what he can do and see if he can be a real option. But then again, obviously Alex Freeland with his legit prospect pedigree and what he showed the Dodgers last year, I do think that there is a player to dream on with Alex Freeland, and I do believe the Dodgers also believe in him as well. So that's why it is a thing to look forward to on my list. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about, and to me this is going to be the most interesting thing to look forward to all spring, is Roki Sasaki, and how does he look this spring? Has he progressed at all? And really just how does the spring overall look, and what can we kind of look forward to going into 2026, because obviously he's going to be going back into the rotation, and that is going to be something I'm going to be trying to look forward to and look at all his starts. Hopefully I'm able to see them live, but if not, I'll definitely be going back to look at every pitch and just kind of see how he's developed. Obviously, we all know, kind of the story of Sasaki's year last year. Came in, first year in America, and he really struggled, right away. He really didn't even have that many solid starts. I can remember he had one solid start against the Phillies early on last year, and then one against the Rangers, I believe, and then I think he had one against the Braves, which was his first big league win. But other than that, he really struggled mightily to get whiffs, to get strikeouts, as well as allowing a lot of walks, which is pretty much the worst combination you can have, is not throwing strikes and not getting strikeouts or whiffs. That's kind of like a disaster combination. Then we know what happened. He came back and pitched out of the bullpen and was like basically the Dodgers closer. And, he was electric and come postseason time. Kind of began to struggle just a tiny bit at the very end of the World Series. But like the Dodgers would not have won a World Series without him, with what he did specifically in the first 2 rounds against the Phillies and the Brewers. He was just amazing. And it's just, it proved obviously the talent that he had and the reason why he was so highly regarded as a young Japanese pitcher, and why the Dodgers wanted him and kind of had been looking at him for a couple years. And it just gave you another thing to be excited for going into this year. Now he's going to be going back into the rotation, like I said. And the big thing that I'm looking forward to, and it's really funny, I never said this on my podcast, so I have no way to back this up, but I do remember, thinking going into this offseason, like, what I wanted to see from Roki Sasaki going into 2026 was a couple of pitches to be added to his arsenal. Because if you remember last year, he pretty much has a four-seam fastball, a splitter, which is a wicked splitter. It's a great pitch. And then a slider. No sweeper, no cutter, no sinker. What I wanted to see him add was a sinker and a cutter. A cutter, like a low 90s cutter. If you guys remember, obviously Walker Buehler. The Dodgers have had a lot of pitchers in the last 5 to 10 years where they have developed and, they've had really good cutters, especially right-handed pitchers like, Evan Phillips, who's another guy, by the way, I didn't mention that the Dodgers did bring back after DFAing him earlier in the offseason. Walker Buehler, Blake Trinan. There are a lot of guys that have, add this low 90s cutter that they're able to throw against left-handed hitters to kind of get in on left-handed hitters. That screams to me a pitch that Roki Sasaki needed, because against left-handed hitters, he's pretty much is just four-seam splitter. And if the fastball is getting destroyed like it was last year, he really had nowhere to go against left-handed hitters. And then the sinker, obviously, is a pitch that you use against right-handed hitters, which is you see more right-handed hitters than left-handed hitters, to get in on the hitters, kind of jam hitters, weak contact and stuff like that. And Another perfect pitch for Sasaki, because his four-seam fastball numbers were just horrible last year. He was just getting destroyed. And so those were 2 things that I wanted to see. And ironically, that was some news that came out very early into spring, is that he has added a cutter and a sinker. So I'm really anxious to see what those 2 pitches look like, how they play off his fastball, and how often does he actually use them. Because sometimes you hear about guys adding pitches. Like you used to always hear this with Clayton Kershaw. Obviously, he was nasty and was one of the best pitchers ever, so it didn't really matter. But like adding a sinker, adding a changeup, like you hear that, but then they never actually really throw the pitch. And so I'm really interested to see, like, does Sasaki actually actually implement that pitch into his arsenal and use the sinker against right-handed hitters and use the cutter against lefties? Does he kind of play with his slider? That was another thing last year, was that his slider and his splitter were like very similar speeds, like mid to high 80s. And, I was just interested to see, like, does he want to add like a little bit of a faster, tight slider, like a gyro slider, if you kind of know, like Alex Vesia's slider, something like that, or should he add a sweeper, a big, right to left breaking ball, kind of like, of course, Evan Phillips and Blake Trinan and all those guys? Was that something that would work out for him a little bit better? So it'll be interesting to see if he, tweaks the slider. But really what I'm interested to see is how does the cutter and the sinker look, and just how does he look overall? How does the velo look? Does he come back and hold the velo? Like, one of the impressive things about what he did out of the bullpen last year, and it's not surprising because when a starter goes into the bullpen, it's obviously much different. You're not really thinking about maintaining velo and maintaining your stuff throughout 4, 5, 6, 7 innings. You're kind of just letting it eat, emptying the tank. And the velo jumped way up, where Sasaki on the year pretty much averaged like 96 miles an hour as a starter. Out of the bullpen, he pretty much averaged like 99 miles an hour, and he would regularly touch 100. What does the velo look like this spring? Obviously, velo is not everything. You don't need to be throwing 100 miles an hour in spring, but like, does he kind of come back to what he looked like as a starter last year, where the fastball doesn't have as much life, and the fastball's getting hit around a lot? Those are all interesting, all things that I'm interested to see, How is the buildup? How is he, attacking the strike zone? That was another thing, is that he just absolutely pounded the strike zone when he was a reliever, which is, something that he really didn't do much as a starter. So all of that is just, things I'll be looking forward to seeing is Sasaki, and it's something that I'm going to be watching all spring. Obviously I love to pay attention to all the guys, but Tyler Glasnow and Yamamoto, those are, those kind of guys I'm going to be paying attention to, of course, but, I'm confident that, those are kind of proven guys. The only thing that Glasnow has to prove is just stay healthy. I'm also interested to see how Shohei Ohtani is built up throughout spring, because he is supposed to go back to being a true two-way player and not have as much restraints like he did last year, where we didn't even see Shohei pitch until June. Now, he's going to be playing in the WBC, which does make things a little complicated. He won't be pitching in the WBC, but obviously, he's going to be, he is supposed to be ready for opening day and go right into the starting rotation. So I'm just interested to see how they build him up. Does he come opening day, whether he's the opening day starter, which I don't think he will be. I think it'll be Yamamoto, but whether he is ready to go on opening day, ready to pitch, how built up is he, ready to right away to go 4 or 5 innings, or is it going to be another slow buildup of 1 inning, 2 innings, all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. But Roki Sasaki is definitely going to be the guy that I am most interested to see what he looks like this spring. Because like I said, a lot of the proven stars, it's not, you don't really need to look into their numbers and how are they performing. Of course, it's always great to see guys perform. But they always say hitters always say you don't want to peak too early into spring. You want to peak at the end of spring so you're ready to go right into opening day. But Sasaki's a guy that is going to be, all spring. I'm going to be interested to see what does his pitches look like, what does his velo look like. Hopefully they got the velo and they got the gun ready to go, because sometimes in spring training they don't show that stuff, but usually on Baseball Savant you can get those numbers. So I am very interested to see what does Roki Sasaki look like all spring. That is going to be by my personal most favorite thing to look forward to. And then the last thing I have is the guys coming back. 2 guys that I really never talked about last year because they were injured all season. Never saw them. Gavin Stone and River Ryan, 2 other starting pitchers, both right-handed pitchers, both young guys. Stone actually made his debut in 2023, but really made a name for himself in 2024. River Ryan also came up in 2024. 2 different guys. Stone actually pitched all 2024 when they had a ton of injuries, and he was one of the really few reliable guys that they had until he literally went down at the very end of the season. It looked like he was going to be part of the postseason rotation. Pitched to a mid-3s ERA. But then he got hurt and ended up getting shoulder surgery, and he was done all 2025. Never saw him. River Ryan came up later in 2024, showed some really electric stuff, pitched a couple really good games, but immediately got hurt. Tommy John, and we'll see you in 2026. So they are guys that are both throwing currently in spring. They are here, and they're building up. They both have added some muscle. If you look at them, that you could tell they've added, 5, 10, 15 pounds of muscle, looking a little bit bigger. I don't know if one of them, if maybe not, I don't even know if, I don't know if both of them, maybe not even one of them will be in this rotation to start the year. Now, again, with Blake Snell possibly, who knows his status for opening day, that does leave the door open for some of these guys like River Ryan, like Gavin Stone, maybe even a Justin Robleski to kind of be in that sixth spot of the rotation, because obviously we know the Dodgers are going to have a 6-man rotation, which will consist of Yamamoto, Ohtani, Glasnow, Snell. The 5th guy should be Emmett Sheehan, and then if there is a if Snell goes down, then that leaves the door open for another guy. And River Ryan and Gavin Stone are going to be the 2 of those guys. I do believe that River Ryan will start the year in the minor leagues. He actually still, even though he's a bit of an older prospect, even when he debuted in 2024, he was 25 years old. So now he's 26, I guess. he still has not had a ton of big league or professional innings under his belt, because River Ryan actually was a guy who was drafted as like a two-way player. So he played some shortstop and pitched in the minor leagues. So he's like fairly new to pitching at the big league level, at the professional level in his life. So he doesn't have a ton of innings under his belt, and obviously he's coming off the Tommy John. So I do believe he will definitely start the year in the minor leagues. Gavin Stone, I do think if he looks ready to go, and if Snell's in question, there's a chance he could be that sixth guy. But I still believe, again, like coming off that surgery, it would probably. I feel like the leader in that group would be Justin Robleski. But again, two other guys that I'm really interested to see what they do this spring. Gavin Stone was a very interesting pitcher in 2024. Not a big strikeout guy. He did not have great strikeout numbers if you go back to his 2024. He actually threw 140 innings, only 116 strikeouts. Now, again, a 3.53 ERA. He had very, very good walk numbers, barrel numbers, ground ball numbers, hard hit numbers. He actually got a lot of chase. He throws a ton of pitches: changeup, fastball, sinker, slider, cutter. He has a very good changeup. Like I said, that was his main pitch, and he was a really like fun pitcher to watch. But he's a little bit of like a ground ball, contact pitcher. Kind of like when I think of his pitch repertoire and think of his pitches and his command and all that stuff, he's kind of like a Merrill Kelly, like a poor man's Merrill Kelly of the Diamondbacks. That's who he's kind of similar to, and I really liked him. But again, it's a little tough with these young guys with this loaded rotation. But obviously, the Dodgers know this better than anyone. You need a long list of depth because you never know when the injuries could come. And we pray that 2026 is a season that we finally can just chill with the injuries. Obviously, injuries are always going to happen. Like, I feel like, honestly, you can bake in, like, Snell and Glasnow being on the IL at some point. Hopefully, it's not anything major. But you never know with those guys, especially Glasnow and Snell. And then, obviously, like, Sasaki had the injury last year. Yamamoto had an injury. His first year. Ohtani's had a ton of injury history, so you need the depth. There are other minor leaguers, top prospects. Jackson Ferris, I forget the name. Jackson Ferris, I believe, the left-handed pitcher the Dodgers got in the Cubs Michael Busch trade, is another guy that you could see at some point this year. So those are pretty much all my things to look forward to and to be kind of interested in the 2026 spring training. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's pretty much all I have for you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. Throughout spring training, I'm going to be making podcasts. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to do some breakdowns, kind of breaking down how is Sasaki looking and how are some of these guys, position players, looking, and any other storylines that are going to come out. I'm going to be on here to break down. We're going to be getting back to a much more regularly scheduled program. I would really love to get back to 2 podcasts a week. But obviously, we'll see. There isn't always a ton of things to talk about in spring training, but there will be news to talk about. There will be things to talk about. We'll see how it all plays out, and then some WBC stuff will be cool. The WBC is always fun to look at and is always fun to watch. So, Team USA, the DR, Japan, like those teams are loaded again this year. So it'll be interesting and it'll be fun. And spring training just always brings a lot of optimism, a lot of fun, a lot of interest, it's just a fun thing to look forward to after a long winter. So as always, you can get this podcast, Talking Blue, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notifications so you don't miss any of the videos. Follow us on all social media, X, Twitter, X is what it is actually called, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, at Talking Blue Pod. You can follow myself at Talking Blue Nick, at X, and then like I said on Reddit as well at competitive-week8715. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you guys soon to talk about some spring training stuff. There'll be games going on this weekend, so hopefully we'll have some cool things to watch. Thank you guys again. We will see you shortly.